Welcome to the first episode of the 4 Out 1 In podcast with your host, George Hamilton III.
And Carlos Costas.
How you doing, bro?
I'm good. I'm really excited to get this show on the road. We've been talking about starting a podcast for a while, so it's pretty exciting to start this new podcast channel with you.
Yes, indeed. This has been one of my bros since high school. We kind of bonded through basketball. We root for the same team. College basketball even brought us closer. So this is one of my bros, and I've always wanted to do this with him since probably sophomore or junior year. We've just never had the time to actually do it until now. So
Yeah,
first, oh God.
I was just gonna say, yeah, started off when I first met you. We kind of immediately bonded over sports. The first time I ever met you, I don't know if you remember this, George. It was like freshman year. It was like after class in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I think you were playing soccer or something. Then I was like, you know what? Let me just go play with them. Let me go kick a soccer ball with them. And then I don't know. We started talking after that. Everything has been sports since we met the first time. So yeah, it's a long time coming to be here.
Yes. I guess we can start off with when was the first time you fell in love with the game?
Yeah. So I would say the first time would have to be the 2010 Lakers. Is kind of the team that made me fall in love with the game. I think, well, my parents kind of always played the Laker games, so I grew up watching those, but I didn't really fall in love with it. It's like 2010 when I could really understand what was happening, um, and just what Kobe did that year and bringing a ship to LA that kind of sparked the interest in the love for me. Then after that, it just grew from there. I think you can agree with me on this one. It was like after that 2010 team, it was the me being a smaller guard. I fell in love with Chris Paul and the idea of him coming to the Lakers to playing with Kobe. That's like my two favorite players. I think that's like what really made me fall in love with basketball. That I was like, okay, like this is just more than just a game for me right now. And then it went to the Lob City Clippers, and then beyond that, that's kind of how I fell in love with everything.
Yes, yeah. When was the first time you started playing basketball?
Ooh, playing basketball, I would say somewhere around that time, probably sooner.
Hmm.
Than that, my mom kind of threw me into like a rec league, but I didn't really like it at first. But I was just a tough kid that didn't really a tough, stubborn kid. I didn't really want to do anything new. Um, So, mom, if you're watching this, I know you're laughing because you know the whole story behind that. But yeah, very transformative going to that basketball league and playing. What about you?
Okay, so first time watching basketball, I would say would have to be maybe the '06, '07 Lakers. I mean, we're both Clippers fans, as we said, but I mean, we both started off watching Kobe. So yeah, the
Yeah,
'06, '07 Lakers would probably be the first. I mean, I still have all the old jerseys of that my parents and my grandparents gave me of like Kobe and Shaq. So I still have all of those pictures and all of that stuff hanging on in my room. But in terms of watching basketball, it would have to be the '06, '07 Lakers. Kobe Bryant's my favorite player. And then afterwards, I transitioned into everyone in LA is a Lakers fan, but I really wasn't a Lakers fan. I was just a Kobe fan. So around like 2008, I would say, when like before Blake Griffin got drafted, I would say I kind of pivoted towards watching the Clippers and then just became a Clipper fan ever since.
I think me and you are kind of the same in that boat. How we kind of transitioned to liking the Clippers. That we're kind of like going against the grain as sports fans. I think just beyond basketball, me and you specifically are like the two people I know that aren't really afraid to go against whatever team is popular at the time, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And before anyone says anything about us being from LA and being Clippers fans, just know we were all um, we all fell in love with Kobe. Kobe did so much for the city and for all of us. So before you get on our cases for being Clipper fans, just know that Kobe Bryant's the reason we're doing this right now. So let's get that straight first.
Yes, shout out to the Mamba.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess we can start off with the Final Four talk. You want to take the lead on UNC and Duke?
Yeah, so that game actually just finished up later today. We're recording this like hours after Carolina beat St. Peter's. So I could talk about Carolina real quick. Um, I think UNC looks all the part of a championship team so far. And I said that um, before the tournament even started. I knew they were going to get seeded low for the way they started off the year, but I think it was like Coach K's last home game that I was really like, okay, when the pressure's on, all the lights are on them, just like how it was in Cameron. They show up and they come to play, and they're a tough team to beat. And every game so far has proven it. And they look all the part of a championship team. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I think this Final Four game is going to be pretty crazy with them and all the other blue bloods in this. But Carolina has been good the entire tournament. I think Armando Bacot is the main driver of that team. You could argue RJ Davis has been spectacular in the last couple of games, but I think Armando Bacot's impact, he has his hand in everything on the offensive side, the defensive side, leadership. Um, doesn't lose his cool. He got into it during the Baylor game, didn't lose his cool at all. He's been super consistent, super solid for them. So UNC definitely can win a chip this year. And then going back to that game at Cameron Duke, I was kind of hesitant with Duke on the other side after that game because I know they got a tough win over our Zags um, earlier in the beginning of the season, and Carolina really punched them in the mouth, and I was like, "Dang, can they recover and play big time in the moment?" So I kind of waited for the ACC tourney game. Didn't really know what to think after that. Then the tournament came. They've looked really good. I think Mark Williams and Paulo are one of the most deadly front courts in college basketball, and Mark Williams has got nothing but better since his time at Duke, and it's so fun to watch them as a team. Not only just because the presence of Coach K, but they all kind of like buy in to that like brotherhood culture. Like I don't know if you remember the moment, George, where they all slapped the floor right before inbounds play. I think just buying into them, it just makes it fun to watch, like from a fan side, and um, they've been playing super well. Their guard play is up there with the best in the country. So if either of those teams win the national championship, I won't even be surprised. I don't want to say I saw it coming, or I'm not gonna say I told you so because I really didn't. Um, but man, those teams are going to be crazy, and I want to see that in the Final Four. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, first time ever matching up in an NCAA tournament. Like it's gonna be crazy.
It's kind
Uh,
of hard to believe, but you know, dreams do come true for college basketball fans.
yep. Uh, so I guess I'll take the lead on Villanova and Kansas. Nova, uh, kind of surprised they made it to the Final Four. I'm not gonna lie. I thought they were going to get beat by Arizona or Houston, but I kind of knew the Houston Villanova game in the Elite Eight was going to be a defensive matchup. I mean, Houston wasn't making any of their threes early on, but I kind of knew it was going to be a defensive matchup. Colin Gillespie, heart and soul of that team. Jermaine Samuels, getting boards, getting points. I want to send my prayers up to Justin Moore. I know he tore his Achilles late in that game yesterday, and I kind of saw it as it happened, but I'm not a doctor, so I didn't want to speculate. But I kind of saw his leg kind of do a little. It kind of popped out a little bit, so I didn't want to speculate. But prayers to him. Defensive juggernaut, doesn't really score a lot of points, but as I said, defensive team, so they don't really need to. As for Kansas, I really think they have the best shot out of all of out of the remaining three teams left. Uh, Agbaji and David McCormick, probably the top two, probably the best duo out of the four teams. They have Jalen Wilson, Christian Braun, and Remy Martin off the bench that can score buckets if they need to. They defend well too. Agbaji is possibly the national player of the year if I'm not mistaken. He'd probably get my vote. So between those two, I would have to go with Kansas taking that game if I'm not mistaken.
With all that being said, let's give our final predictions right now for the Final Four.
Yeah, that game
Who
is
do you
gonna.
have in the championship game?
I got Kansas and I got Duke. Duke wants revenge for what happened at Cameron.
Definitely, I'm with that. Kansas Duke. I want to see that in the championship game. And who's your 2022 NCAA national champion?
Got to go with Duke.
Gotta go with Duke. It's hard to root against them right now, especially with Coach K in his last year. I think it's just a good story for basketball in general for Coach K. Arguably one of the greatest coaches ever, just finishing on top, just to add another one to the legacy. So
That would be a battle of like a 6-man rotation because Kansas only plays like partially 7 guys, but Duke primarily plays a 6-man rotation. So it would be a battle between those two that I'd like to see.
oh, for sure. I think those are the only two teams I think that can play six and be effective with six the entire time, just the way their system, both of their respective systems are used with the type of guys that they recruited. And I'm so excited. I really hope that matchup is one we get to see.
All right. So pivoting, if you don't know, Carlos is the resident Gonzaga Bulldog. He goes to school there. So as I didn't see Thursday's game, but can you elaborate on what actually happened? Because I did hear there was some controversy.
Yeah, so just post game thoughts. Credit to Arkansas. They deserve all the credit in the world. They definitely deserve that win more than Gonzaga did. One thing I will say is that Gonzaga did not play well at all. You can look at the box scores and they do not lie. We shot absolutely terrible that game, the turnovers too. And Arkansas really just came out to play. They wanted it more. You could tell that they wanted it more. Just the controversy that was going into that. I know a lot of people, myself included, watching the actual game, had a lot of stuff to say about the refereeing in that game. That could be me being a biased Gonzaga homer here, but I think a lot of people during the tournament have seen a lot of stuff be called left and right, and it hasn't really been consistent at all. I mean, one of the most apparent calls, in my opinion, the bad calls was Chet Holmgren's fifth foul. I don't know how much more you want him to do in the rule of verticality. He literally jumped straight up, landed straight down. He didn't initiate contact at all, but I'm not a referee. Don't really know the rule book like that. I'm just being a open fan and the opinion. And before we move on from this game, there's been a lot of talk about Gonzaga being frauds. George, feel free to chime in whenever you feel. But a lot of people are saying that, Gonzaga is a 1 seed, but they're only a 1 seed, and their record only looks good because they play in a really bad conference, and when it comes tournament time, they choke every single time because they're not actual contenders. They're not a real 1 seed. Before I give my whole spiel on this topic, George, what are your thoughts on?
I wouldn't call them a fake 1 seed just because you figure last year they made the final. What they've been to the final four, what, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 times?
Yeah.
So
Uh,
oh,
yeah. In
yeah,
the past twice in the past 4 years.
okay, yeah. So at least twice, 2 Final Fours, 1 national championship appearance. Like it's just
Two
sometimes
two cha- two
two
championship
championship.
appearances.
Okay. Let me get my facts straight. 2 championship appearances and maybe 2 or 3 Final Fours if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, for them to like be called frauds just because they play in a weaker conference, I mean, you can't really say that necessarily because if you look at their non-conference schedule, they play the top teams in every conference or in at least the Power Five. So I mean, you can't really say just because their conference schedule is easy because of their opponents, you can't really say that they're frauds and they don't deserve a number one seed because their non-conference schedule kind of makes up for their conference opponents. But in terms of tournament play, honestly would have thought this was the year. I would say last year, but Baylor was looking good throughout the entire season. But this year, I was shocked during the tournament that they started off sluggish in a lot of games. And I kind of thought like it would kind of catch up to them eventually, depending on who they would play. I mean, I didn't think Arkansas would be that opponent, but props to them. They came out to play. And I mean, it's just another one of those years where we kind of consider what is Gonzaga as a number one seed.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said, and I think you put a lot of stuff into pretty good perspective on this topic. But uh, yeah, a lot of things I've been seeing around Twitter and TikTok accounts and all the sports media stuff is that yes, Gonzaga does play a really good non-conference schedule, but a team that you play in like January, December versus a team you play in March, that's two completely different teams, which I agree with. March, everything comes into like fruition and everyone comes to play. But I don't think you can say that we're not a number one seed and that we don't play any competition. We're no Power Five, but we still sent 3 teams to the tournament. And I think San Francisco played a fantastic first round game, even though they lost. And St. Mary's did the same thing as well, and they've been playing good all season. So I don't think you can really say that Gonzaga doesn't really play anyone and that we're a fake number one seed because we've been to 24 straight NCAA tournaments, and like you said, 2 Final Fours, 2 national championship appearances. Though we lost, it's still super tough to get to that last game. And I saw this thing on Twitter. Let me pull this up quick.
You good?
By
Oh god.
one of the accounts, they said that Coach K went to 5 Final Fours before he finally won a title. Dean Smith went to 8 Final Fours. Calipari went to 4 Final Fours, and Mark Few has been to 2 Final Fours. So it's far from over. That just goes to show you, even with those legendary coaches, it is hard to win a national championship. It is no easy feat. So I think it's only a matter of time. And you know what, George? I, along with the entire city of Spokane and the whole population of Gonzaga, agree that we all thought that this was finally going to be the year that it happened. But enough Gonzaga talk. We'll see them next year, and excited for the Final Four next week. On the next pod, we'll definitely give our opinions after everything went down. But kind of going into a transition real quick to the NBA scene.
All right. I guess we can start off with Brooklyn. Kyrie finally being back full time. Mayor Eric Adams made his decision to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not release the vaccine mandate for athletes, but kind of the private sector kind of go around it in a way so that Kyrie can play full time. Everyone's been waiting. This whole thing has been kind of weird. I mean, we're both vaccinated, so we don't want to get into the politics of all of that. But Kyrie finally being able to play full time is going to make the NBA playoffs interesting as they're sitting in 8th place. What is your take on Kyrie being back full time?
I think that's huge to him back and playing in Barclays. He's been good this season. Like in the games he's played, um, he's looked so good. So excited to see him in home games, and I think that's big. You have to think that Mayor had to change it because they're an 8, and he doesn't want to see them in the play-in and stuff. You can argue that Mayor wants to see Kyrie play, but I think that's going to be huge for them, and I think that makes them even scarier of a team if they play in the play-in and playing at a not with home court advantage. In the playoffs is going to be so scary for whoever's at the top and has to play them. And I think with both of him and Durant, again, automatic contenders, especially the fact that now you have them 100% of the time, not just 50% of the time in the playoffs. It's huge. Do you think? I think they're the favorites to win right now. Even
Ah,
sitting at 8, I think you can't count them out, and I think they're still contenders.
yeah, I would say they're contenders. I don't know about winning the whole thing. Boston just looks absolutely like the best team in the conference. I wouldn't say best team in the league because there's obviously Phoenix, but best team in the conference for sure. I would say I'd go Boston, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Philly as the top four. But Brooklyn with KD and Kyrie and the way they've been playing over the last 5 or 6 games, like can't count them out, especially with
Hold on. Let, let, let me get this list straight. I did not mean to say the favorite to win it all. I meant to say like they're still contenders being 8. Continue. Sorry.
Nah, you good. I understand what you meant. But Brooklyn sitting in the 8th spot, 2 games behind Cleveland and Toronto. Uh, as long as they don't get Toronto for a play-in game, they'd be kind of solid. I still think they can beat either one of those teams in the play-in, but as long as they don't get Toronto in that 7th spot and have to travel to Toronto where Kyrie can't play, they should be able to kind of beat all of the teams in that conference. I'd say Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly would give them a scare, but with the way KD and Kyrie play and the rest of those guys, Curry, Drummond, the bench would need to play excellent in the playoffs. But other than those 3 teams, they should be able to get to the finals out of the East.
100%. And I think this is good. This is as good as the East has ever been in the past couple of years. Just having that many contenders, usually the past couple of years has been like top two. Whoever's in the top two probably walking out of it. But this is exciting, and I love playoff time. I love this time of March for college basketball, and then the playoffs coming around. I can't wait to transition fully into that and to see these games. I think Toronto, like you said, definitely is going to be tough without Kyrie. And that team, kind of a sleeper team to make it deep in the playoffs to make a run at it. But um, I like Freddie carrying that team, man. I've been a fan of Freddie for so long. It's kind of hard for me to root against him. It's a little of a homer of a pick, but I'm excited if that game happens. Um, and Boston, 6-game win streak. Um, I added that to a topic right before we started this to ask George if he thinks Boston is a real contender and why.
Boston, I didn't even know they were first until like I just checked the standings. Boston is wildly, it's been a crazy season. I remember when the season first started, the whole media was like, oh, should they trade Jason Tatum? Should they trade Jaylen Brown? I was kind of a part of that narrative, but I was like, Tatum and Brown, they've got this. And ever since probably I'd say November, December, they've just been climbing up the standings. And as we see now, they're first place, riding a 6-game win streak. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are playing well. The bigs, Horford and Williams, are playing pretty good against all of the top centers in the league. They just held Cat, I think, to like 15 points tonight. So and then they held Jokic to 20, I think, but he shot 8 of 23 last week when they played. So the team is just gelling at the right time, and I would not be surprised if they were to get out of the East.
Gelling at the right time is like the perfect phrase that I would describe this team as right now. You always say like in college basketball, you want to peak at the right time. You want to peak in March, and they're doing that right now towards the end of the season. They're going to have all momentum going into the playoffs, and going off of what you said about Horford and Williams. I think that those two have been a sleeper front court on the defensive end of the court. I've even when they got Horford back, the Celtics did. I knew that I was like, damn, they're going to be good on defense with Williams kind of being more of the rim protector and Horford being more of the paint protector. And Robert Williams being able to learn a lot from Al Horford because Al Horford's always been like a plus defender his whole career. And Yeah, they're going to be a scary, scary team to play in the playoffs with all this going on right now.
All right. I guess we can transition into another team in the Eastern Conference, the Chicago Bulls. Earlier this week, they got destroyed by the Bucks, which made them 0-16 in against teams against top three teams in the Eastern and Western Conference. And they've fallen from from the first seed to the fifth seed. A lot of that is due to injuries. Patrick Williams just came back. Lonzo has a setback with his knee injury. They just got Caruso back like a week or two ago. So I mean, I'm not surprised that they fell from the first seed, but the drop off and the fact that they haven't beaten a top 16 team or a top 3 team in either conference in every matchup they've had against those three teams is kind of a bit worrying to me. Depending on what happens with Lonzo, they might be able to get out the first round, but I would not be surprised if they were to get knocked out in the playoffs in the first round, just because uh, the teams that they would probably have to play are teams they haven't beaten. And I mean, the best thing for them is to get a matchup against a young Cleveland team that hasn't really had much of experience outside of Kevin Love. But I would say that Chicago would definitely need to get everyone healthy for them to have a shot. What's your take on that, by the way?
Would you consider contenders before I say my opinion?
Contenders, I'd say sleeper. They're like the Miami Heat, and I mean I know the Miami Heat are getting a lot of slack for everything that's happened over the past 2 to 3 days with the whole Udon and Butler incident, but they've been called the Utah Jazz of the East. I still have faith that they can get out the first round. I don't know if they have the ability to get out the second, like the Bulls, but like the Bulls in this case. But those two teams are like dark horses outside of Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Philly, and Boston.
I'm with that. That's very fair. And I think that the Bulls, that's a very concerning that they haven't um, won a game against top three teams, which is like what you said earlier. It's like that's not good because you're going to play them deeper in the playoffs if given you make it that far, and you have not beat them all season, regardless if you have Caruso, Lonzo, or what have you, that Patrick Williams that have all been injured in this time. Um, I think that's going to be very scary. And even if when you get them back for the playoffs, or if you get them back in the playoffs at all, I don't know how much that's going to do for you because even in the beginning of the season, they still were not winning games against top three teams. Um, the saying is like you always got to beat the bad teams, but the great teams beat the good teams too. Um, but you know, the Bulls have beat the bad teams, but haven't beat any of the great teams. So that's going to be very interesting to see in the playoffs. And that team doesn't really have a lot of playoff experience. I don't think, aside from DeRozan, maybe Vucevic. Oh, here we go. And Alex Caruso, LA's favorite. Here we
can't
go.
can't forget the goat for the Lakers. Even though we're both Clipper fans, he was one of my favorite players
Hey,
to watch while he was on the Lakers.
should have won Finals MVP. You didn't hear that from me though.
To piggyback off of your points, I would say playoff experience for them is very limited outside of DeRozan. I mean, you can throw Vucevic in there, but he played for the Orlando Magic that got swept pretty much every time he was in the playoffs, except for that one year they beat, I think, Toronto. And that was the game DJ Augustine like played well and
Yeah,
Kyle Lowry played bad. But
yeah.
outside of those guys and Caruso, like this team really doesn't really have a lot of playoff experience, which is kind of going to be uh crucial for them if they do not get a team like the Cavaliers who are in the same boat as them. But I guess with that, we can kind of transition to the Western Conference if you want. Uh, I guess we can talk about the best team in the league by far, the Phoenix Suns, and the whole Devin Booker not getting MVP considerations.
I mean, it's not wrong for you to say that he's having an MVP type season because he's been the best player on the best team in the league, which is, by definition what you would think the MVP is. But over the years, MVP has just went to who has the most points per game, rebounds, all that. Wins don't really matter as much anymore. So, yeah, and you have to have a lot of star power with that too. And a lot of people in the league need to kind of like you, like league and fans. Uh, Giannis, the Jokic, they put up crazy numbers, and individually, they're having probably one of the better seasons. So MVP, I don't know. I don't want to get into the whole talk about like how MVP voting should be and everything, but I think that Book is definitely having an MVP caliber season. He's been amazing for this team, and going into the season, I was saying I hope that this man doesn't get another injury reserve All Star because it's gonna say All Star, but his legacy is gonna be like, oh, he was an injury reserve. But I'm really happy. I've been a fan of Booker uh, for a couple of years now. I'm happy that he's getting all the love for MVP, all the love for the season he's putting up. He's no longer an empty stats guy. Um, his box numbers and what he does on the court translates to winning. So I'm happy about that. But what else do you have to say about the Suns, George?
Uh, Leadership of Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton putting up at least 18 and 10 a night. Mikal Bridges, 3-and-D wing, locking up the other team's best perimeter player. Cam Johnson, that game he had versus, I want to
New
say,
York.
yeah, New York. Okay, thank you for helping me out there. New York, where Booker and Paul were both out, but he made the game-winning three after having 37 points to close the night. Like, this team is just built for a championship run. And as I said last year, they were just missing a backup center. They got that with JaVale McGee. Dario Saric, I'm pretty sure would probably be returning soon, at least for a playoff run, if they want to go small and not have to play JaVale. That team is just built really well. Props to James Jones, Monty Williams, always been a great coach. And I want to give a shout out to Devin Booker for wearing my school's sweatshirt after the game versus Denver. I didn't even know about that he until I saw a post from, I go to Howard University, by the way. I didn't know he wore a sweatshirt in the post game press conference until I saw a post about it today, talking about he isn't getting MVP considerations. And I mean, I don't want to get into the whole MVP talk because I do believe that he should be, do believe that he should have been in the MVP conversations from partially the middle point of the season. I mean, we were giving DeRozan MVP considerations for dropping 35 points for like 10 consecutive games, but Booker was playing on the best team by far and not getting any consideration for the award. That being said, I think he should be top 5 if I'm not mistaken, but I don't literally see him having a chance of winning it outside of like Jokic, Embiid, and probably Giannis.
This it's pretty interesting that you brought up the DeRozan point because I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I don't think Booker is going to win MVP, but yes, I do think he should be up there in the MVP like rankings or what have you. But why do you think that is? That Devin Booker is not up there, but DeRozan was.
I just think at the time the Bulls, they were one of the hottest teams in the league. Before Lonzo and Caruso went down, they were playing lights out defensively, offensively. Uh, they probably DeRozan was like the catalyst, hitting all those game-winning shots versus Indiana and Washington. His ceiling for MVP kind of just rose, and then as Caruso and Lonzo got injured, they started playing bad offensively and defensively, and I think his stock just dropped. Whereas Booker really wasn't even getting MVP considerations all season until recently, probably within the last week. But as I said, he he should get MVP considerations, but he's probably not gonna win it.
I think he has a storyline there that DeRozan has a storyline. The Bulls weren't good. He played for the Spurs. They didn't make the playoffs. Comes out of nowhere, playing like an MVP. I don't know. I'm about to go on a deep dive in NBA MVP voting here, but love to the Suns. Um, we're rooting for you. Me and George both were rooting for the Suns for this one, just for our guy Chris Paul.
Yeah. I guess from there we can kind of transition into you want to talk about Memphis or Golden State?
Oh, we could talk about Memphis because I was going to say, does John Morant need to be in consideration for the MVP too?
Yeah. You want to just give your top five off the top five, even though we kind of know it's a three-man race. Like, just give your top five.
For MVP.
Yeah.
For MVP, I think I think Jokic is probably going to win it. Again, he's probably going to go back to back. I think Giannis deserves to be up there, for sure in the top two. Yeah, I said top two over Joel. I'm liking Giannis's this season a little more than his. Yeah, Embiid again. You can't forget about him though. That's the consensus top three, pretty much this season. And I think Booker and Ja 4 or 5, whichever way you want to put them. I think those two for sure need to be up there, in MVP. And would you throw LeBron in there?
No.
Interesting, because here I go again trying to talk about the way voting works because he's having a great season by himself. What about you for top five?
My list is probably the same. Jokic, that's my guy. If you look at my tweets on Twitter, uh, I'll probably give my Twitter handle at the end of the video. But Jokic, I've been a very big supporter of him ever since he kind of was gaining traction back in like 2017, 2018. Been a big fan of his. I would say Joel is probably second, having a great season, kind of carried the Sixers while Ben was out with mental health. And then Giannis at number 3. Giannis has had a great season. Kind of struggled in the beginning due to all the injuries and health and safety protocols the Bucks were going through, but he's kind of carried them to at least the third or fourth seed. And then at least 4 and 5, I would probably go John Booker, to be honest. Like, they've just been having great seasons. Ja elevated the Memphis Grizzlies. Did not think they would be fighting for a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. But he's been that guy along with that team. And as for the Suns, Booker 26-6 on at least good efficiency. Nothing more you can ask for like an MVP candidate. As I said, he probably wouldn't win, but he's putting up MVP type numbers. And to kind of go into depth on that, I saw a post on Twitter where they were like, in 06, Steve Nash put up like 16 and 12 and won MVP. But Devin Booker is putting up 26-6 and not getting MVP considerations, which I kind of thought was interesting. I mean, it just goes to show you like the way MVP voting kind of works in a way. But as I said, neither of us are really big. We're not media people, so we can't get into the whole logistics of MVP voting. As for award voting, I would like to see best offensive player award, similar to like the NFL, how they do the best offensive player of the year, and then they have their own MVP award where like you could kind of distinguish the two. Because if I was to be honest, I would say Jokic is the MVP, and then it's probably like a four-man race between for at least offensive player of the year.
I think that's an interesting take. If um, basketball was to put an offensive player of the year and the defensive player of the year, I think that'd be pretty crazy. Just the way the league is trending. But I think offensive player of the year is not far to say. I mean, every year you see um, guys breaking records that have never been done before from a scoring perspective, scoring and shooting perspective. So yeah, I'd love to see an offensive player of the year along with the defensive player of the year. I think that'll be. I don't know. I'm trying to like imagine who would win it and who would win it down in the future. But it's like, what would distinguish an MVP from an offensive player of the year?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the, by the way, there is a defensive player of the year. uh
Uh, they don't get any love in the NBA, man.
yeah, that is true. I mean, the last few people to win that award have been what, Rudy and want to say Giannis 1 year, but if I'm not mistaken, but I mean, those two have won the defensive player of the year, but they don't really get a lot of love for it. As to distinguish the offensive player and MVP, you do make a good point. It would kind of be hard to distinguish it. I mean, I'd like to kind of see what the NFL, how they distinguish it and how those awards are given out, because I think it's only been a handful of times where the offensive player of the year has won has been different from the MVP from the person that won MVP. So if there was a way to kind of see how they distinguish it and then how the NBA could possibly distinguish those two awards, it would be kind of interesting.
I,
Oh,
I I've always wondered that too, because obviously football is played on like two different sides of the ball, but like distinguishing offensive player and MVP, I've always just thought of it. MVP is like it's a quarterback race in in my eyes, but I'm a casual when it comes to football, so don't take my word for it.
uh, I guess we can kind of pivot to our teams, I guess. The Clippers sitting in at 36-39. We're still a playing team, most likely going to make the play-in regardless. But what I want to touch on is the fact that we've lost 5 straight games. And I mean, I know at least 4 of those games have been against like top teams such as Denver, Phoenix, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But we've played a lot of the top teams in the league, and I'm not surprised that we kind of have been losing, but I didn't expect us to be losing at this pace going into the playoffs. I mean, still feel like we're a dangerous team regardless, but losing 5 straight against good teams going heading into the playoffs is not good. So I want to get your take on like how you think we are going into the playoffs.
I mean, I think we still have a tough stretch to close out the season, which will not be very good for this type of team that doesn't really have a definitive go-to type star, if you will, Paul George and Kawhi not being there. Um, so if we lose in the playoffs or in the playing game, I will not be surprised at all. That's going to exceed expectations for this team, I think. And I think making the playoffs in general, and if we make it out the play-in, and maybe even take a game in the first round, that's going to be an accomplishment in itself, given the roster and everything that um, has happened this season. But I think we're still slept on. Honestly, I think given that we lost 5 games in a row, we're still sitting at the 8th spot. Um, just goes to show you that this team really isn't just a cakewalk of a team if you were to play them in the playoffs, and you still have to prep for them and everything if you go into a playing game against them. Um, I say that after I just said it. I'm not surprised if they lose and everything, but yeah. What do you think about the Clippers right now?
I mean, overall, I am very excited about this. I've been excited about this team without PG. After the first like what 10 or 15 games, they've held their own against a lot of teams. Obviously, without your two stars, you were going to have bad nights shooting defensively wise too. But there's been at least five, maybe six times where we've played poor in the first half and we've ended up coming back in the second and winning the game. Uh, I would say that overall, this team has been one of the more exciting Clipper teams I've rooted for. Just because the team kind of had low expectations going in. We were slated to be at least in an 8 or 9 seed, which is where we are right now. I would say that there are games that we should have won, but we've kind of just we came out flat in the second half or late in games. And as you said, we don't really have a definitive score. I mean, if you want to say Reggie Jackson is our go-to guy in this sense, uh,
Yes, he is. We love Reggie. We
yeah,
love Reggie.
Reggie has played well, even with PG there, and then without PG there. Terrence Mann has given us a great boost. Marcus Morris does his thing. Nick Batum plays well offensively and defensively. And just the whole Clipper team. As I said, I'm not surprised that we're an 8 or 9 seed, but uh, as I don't know if you saw the video, PG was getting up shots in the game before the game on Friday versus Philly. So there may be a chance he comes back, but I wouldn't. To me, it's not worth the risk. I mean, if he wants to play, like he's all capable to play. But and then as well as Norman Powell coming back, those two players, if they do come back for at least a play-in or playoff scenario, like as I said, we can at least give any team a run for their money.
No, I'm fully with that. I'm looking at the rest of our schedule. We have Utah, Chicago, Milwaukee, New Orleans, Phoenix, Sacramento, OKC.
Ooh,
So we're playing some pretty good teams and some pretty bad teams. So we'll see if we can pick up off this 5 game losing streak just to
yeah.
give us something going into the playoffs.
Yep. With that, I know you before we even started this podcast, you said we didn't want to talk about the Lakers, but I guess since they just blew a lead to the New Orleans Pelicans tonight, guess we can talk about Braun putting up a great stat line and them choking the bed once again. Sorry, Laker fans, don't come at us.
I mean, I said it earlier, LeBron's having a great season individually for himself. I think it's just gonna add to his legacy and just I mean, playing in LA, the all eyes are on you, the pressure is high, super high expectations. I mean, it for the Lakers as an organization, your standard is a championship, nothing lower. So I know playing for the Lakers playing under those expectations is not any fun. But the one bright side you have in this season is LeBron adding to his legacy individually. And I think what did his stats say? He was the second person to have 37,000 points, I think.
Yeah, behind Kareem, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, good for him. 1 point for the Lakers to look back on the season and just, damn, Braun really did that.
Yeah,
But I
Braun. Oh, God.
don't care enough to see them in the play-in or anything. I'm sorry.
I agree. I mean, you figure this is the second time they've lost to the Pelicans, and the first time they got absolutely destroyed back in LA. The second game tonight, they had a at least 20-point lead, and they blew that lead late in the fourth quarter. I mean, not surprising because they've blown a lot of leads to a lot of teams this season. They've won at least some of those games and lost a lot of those games. And for Braun to put up 39, 9, and 5 in at least 41, 42 minutes, he is logging a lot of miles on his body. But at this point, I don't think he cares, but he kind of doesn't. He, as he said, he's just trying to put on a show for the fans, trying to give them their money's worth. And honestly, I don't really fault him for it. As for the Lakers as a whole, this team is basically championship or nothing every year. Outside of those years where Kobe was on his last stint and they were trying to go into a rebuilding / young team phase, ever since they've gotten LeBron, every season it's been championship or bust. This season hasn't been what they hoped, and we'll just see what happens next year. Because I after tonight, I kind of don't see them beating the Pelicans. Uh, to be honest, I don't even know. I don't think Zion is probably coming back for New Orleans, but they don't even need him if they're just going to beat this Lakers team before or the playing game, and they meet, I think, in 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the rest of the schedule, but if you want to talk Lakers talk, the only Laker talk I'm willing to participate in is about Winning Time, the show about the Lakers dynasty. If you want to talk to me about that, and I like that show. George put me on. I'm enjoying that show so far. I didn't know. Sorry, are we done with this basketball talk real quick?
Yeah, we can go into Winning Time. I'm good.
Let me just go. I did not know that Norm Nixon's son plays him.
Oh wow,
Did you know that?
I
It's his
didn't.
son. I had no idea. I watched a little segment they got after the show, and it was like, "How do you feel playing your dad?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" That's so crazy to me that he's playing. It reminds me of uh NWA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I
Uh
was like, "Man, that's pretty cool."
yeah, think I've paid attention to the after where it's like Rick Fox talking with some of the actors. I think I've only watched one or two of them, so after that I've kind of like skipped to other shows that I've like kind of needed to watch. But in terms of Winning Time, not surprised about like the whole story. Jerry West, I kind of hate the way he is portrayed because I feel like Jerry West was not that type of person in real life. But as most
Mhm.
TV shows are, it's for dramatic effect. Uh, I would say, what episode are you on, by the way?
I think what is it? How many episodes have been out? Like 30?
3. The fourth one just came out tonight.
Yeah, I'll probably watch after this, but I'm caught up. I'm caught up to all three, and I'm with you. I don't really like the way Jerry West portrayed. I think he's too well respected for as long as he's been in the NBA. But obviously, yeah, dramatic effect. It's cool to the show. But I think the show is just cool in general, just because we didn't really live in that time, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of like learned it. Just um, watching highlights. Just I don't know, learning what the Lakers were all about at the time, the Showtime Lakers and Magic and everything. I just think it's cool, and it's fun to watch the storylines and be like, damn, like Norm Nixon really beat Magic 1-on-1. Like it's like not real, but it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, some of those moments are dramatic for obviously for dramatic effect. I remember paying it or reading about think it was in episode 3 where Jerry West is talking to I forget the coach's name from Portland. Oh, Jack McKinney. Um he's talking to Jack McKinney and talking about how like McKinney might be the head coach. But I was reading in the actual timeline in the real event, Brian Cook actually had Brian Cook, I can't remember, or Jack Cook's name. I can't remember his the general manager's name off the top of my head, but he actually had a say so in like picking the head coach. It wasn't just Dr. Bus having the entire say so, because at the time Dr. Bus didn't even own the team. So I feel like that is actually one thing that was surprising. And
Yeah.
oh god.
No, I was just gonna say I'm excited for the new season. Just catch us next pod. We'll probably bring it up. Next pod we'll probably maybe Pirtle. We'll play Pirtle on the pod next week. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played it today if you wanted to right now.
Let's do it. I haven't done it either.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Hold on, let me pull it up on my. Let me see where I'm supposed to go. Show all windows. Here we go. All right, we good?
Here we go. Do not show the silhouette. Do not show the silhouette.
Okay.
We got to guess this off the top.
All right.
Who should we go with the guess here?
You sure not to look at the silhouette, man? Like, I feel like that.
Only do it when you're like down 6. It makes it fun.
All right. Guard or forward?
Let's go with the guard. I feel like there's more guards in the NBA's.
Eastern or
NBA's,
Eastern or Western Conference?
Stick with the West.
All right. Guards. We'll just go off the top. We'll go Paul. Okay. So we got West.
Oh, a West guard. I was spot on with that.
West guard, taller than 6
West
feet.
guard, not in the Pacific.
So that means it leaves us with the Northwest and the Southeast. Taller than 6 feet. I feel like that narrows down a lot of players. Number is he wears a number that is greater than 3. So let's go Northwest. Should we pick Anthony Simons? Or do you have a better option?
Well, my thought was D'Lo, but I was like, D'Lo wears 0, so maybe not him. Let's go with Simons. We'll see.
Wait, no, Simons wears 1, so it's not Simons. I just realized
that. That is true. Good call. More than taller than 6 foot.
It's gotta be a shooting guard if he's taller than 6 foot.
That is true.
Honestly,
I mean, we can go anyone here.
I'm gonna take a guess and I'm gonna go Campazzo.
Not a chance. Hold on. He is not taller than 6 feet.
Oh yeah, that is true.
He is not tall.
That's true.
He's like 5'9".
That is true. Should we narrow it down to Luka?
Yeah, I was gonna say let's go with Luka.
Oh, okay. So West, Southwest, guard.
Okay.
We already know it's a guard.
He's a guard. He's not a forward. He's a guard.
Yeah, so we know he's a guard.
6'7". Oh, he's younger than 23.
Okay, so Southwest. So it's no one from Dallas. So we got Houston. We have Houston, Southwest. Houston, San Antonio. Houston, San Antonio. I think OKC's in there too.
That's what I was gonna say.
Let me just make sure, because I honestly don't want to get this wrong.
And Denver?
No, Denver is a Northwest. No, Denver is Northwest. So narrowing it down, we have Houston, we have San Antonio, we have, I think New Orleans is in there.
Oh, New Orleans, that's the team.
I was gonna say CJ McCollum, but CJ wears 3, so it's not him.
And the dude is not younger than 23.
That is true. We actually have the age. Okay, so he's got to be young. Would you say Jose Alvarado?
Do it. Hold on. Is he 6 feet though?
Yeah, I think he's taller than 6 feet.
Whatever. Go try it. Shout out to
Alvarado.
Jose Alvarado.
Okay, no, he's 6 feet too. Okay,
Okay,
so we
we
have
narrowed out two teams.
so it's either Houston,
Uh,
San Antonio, or or Houston, San Antonio. I wish they had the divisions on here, but they don't.
OKC.
Okay, he's a Northwest team, I think.
Oh, damn. My
Uh
first thought was Shea, but Shea can't because he wears the number 2. Giddy was also one, but he wears 3.
Houston. Who are the guards on Houston? KPJ.
Could be DeJounte. Is he? He's older than 23, huh?
Oh yeah, I forget. The age actually does matter because I was about to say Eric Gordon, but then I just realized 23, younger than 23.
That man's like 40. What else we got?
Okay, who else is on San Antonio?
We can
Lonnie
go Devin
Walker?
Vassell. We could go. Lonnie Walker was the number 1.
Okay, yeah, good point. Devin Vassell, that's
We can
actually true.
go. We can go Trey Jones. Even maybe Trey Jones.
But he's not taller than is he
Uh,
taller than 6 feet?
I would say he's 6 foot on the dot, or 6'1" is my guess.
Uh Devin
Where is it? Number
Vassell.
33.
All right. So Devin Vassell?
I don't think it's gonna be Devin Vassell. I
I'm
think they're gonna
gonna
classify him as a forward.
I'm gonna look up the NBA divisions just so that I can narrow it down. Because
We're not
I
missing a team.
yeah. We said Southwest. Oh, I think I know who it is.
Well, hold on. Who's the other team?
Memphis.
Is it who I think it is?
Would you say Desmond Bain? Younger than 23, I think.
I feel like he is 23. He was old coming out. Do you remember?
That is
He was like
true.
22. And what is this? His second year? He has to be 23.
Okay, so
Could be
Des-
Ja. Could also be Ja. Oh wait, it can't be Ja.
can't
It
be
has to
Ja.
be over
I was gonna say it's
50.
like Ja or DeAnthony Melton, but I'm thinking of I saw the numbers. They don't wear that.
Anthony Matt. Go with Desmond Bain. We'll see what happens.
Okay, so it's not Desmond Bain. And
So
you were right. It was 23. He is 23. So that only leaves Houston and San Antonio.
try Trey Jones.
This
What
is
did
why I
I
love this guy.
say?
This
What
is
did I say?
this is why I love this guy, man. You called
Oh
it. You
man.
called it earlier, and I kind of was
Oh
like second
man.
guessing, but this is why Carlos is my guy, man.
This is why we started this damn podcast. Because me and George in high school during our free time, what did we do? This.
Yep. This and Sporkle.
And Sporkle. Soon we'll have a sport quiz game segment soon.
Yes, for sure. I guess
Shout out to Trey Jones.
yeah. That we had it, and honestly, I'm glad we didn't look at the silhouette because that was actually a challenge. That was a
Yeah,
challenge.
it's fun, dude. It's fun, yeah.
You have anything else you want to talk about? Or we can wrap it up.
No, I think we're good to wrap it up.
All right. This was the first episode of the 4 Out 1 In podcast. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter at IamGWH3. That is my Twitter handle. Instagram, IamGWH underscore three lowercase i's. If you want to give your IG and Twitter handle.
Yeah, on all socials, I am at Raf Costas 18. That's RAFCOSTS 18. I don't really be posting sports takes, but you can hit me up on the DM if you want to talk. I love talking college basketball, um, or winning time for that matter. High school hoops. I'm open to talk about anything, so hit me on there too.
Yep. As I said, this is the first episode of the 4 Out 1 In podcast. Look forward to many more. And it's your host, George Hamilton III,
Carlos Costas,
and we're signing off.
deuces.
Oh, stop sharing.